Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I'm Nicole Forbes with Dennis's 7Ds, and today we're going to make a wreath out of fresh cut evergreens, and I'm going to show you how, starting with a base frame. Today I've got just a flat wire frame. It's got two rings that are kind of welded together, but it's, nice and lightweight. This is a 12-inch diameter ring. A typical ring size, which you'll find wreath ring frames or wreath frames come in an arrangement of sizes. Typically, like a 12-inch ring size will make twice as wide when you are finished with your wreath. So we're going to end up with a 24-inch diameter wreath, approximately. So there is a handout that accompanies this with really step-by-step instructions, what materials you may need as a reminder, but I've got it all laid out in front of me as well. We're having a little bit of trouble with Facebook's newer settings today, and we can't attach the handout as we normally do below the title. So we're going to insert it into the comment section, and I believe that has just happened. So look into the comments for the materials and step-by-step instructions for this project. But really what you need is that wreath base or frame. It could be a hand-woven, circle of grape vines or recycled vines, even ivy that you may have cut from home, twisted up dogwood, willow, all kinds of things that you can use to create a base wreath if you don't have or can't get your hands on a metal one. These are easily acquired at the craft store, and Dennis 70s does have some around this time of year for the holidays. To attach to the wreath, rather than using pre-cut or short pieces of wire, which you do see I have here for smaller inserted purposes, we have what's called paddle wire. Paddle like you paddle your canoe. Paddle wire is a continuous piece of wire that has a nice, it's all wrapped around a paddle that gives you some ability to kind of pull and give some tension to the wire. Now, paddle wire is just a type of craft wire. So again, usually can be found at craft supply stores and comes in a variety of colors and like strengths or gauges. So this, I believe, is a 24 gauge paddle wire. The thicker gauge allows heavier greens or maybe a bigger, bulkier wreath, and thinner wire can sometimes break if you have too much tension on it, or if you're using greens that are too heavy or bulky for the thinner wire. So what I have to use today is just easily accessible for us, fresh cut evergreens, mostly conifers. We, love the conifers not only because they do stay fresh really for a long time, especially if outside, but they have a wonderful fragrance. And so we're smelling cedar and fir and juniper, and just the fragrances are kind of mingling as we make this project, which kind of adds to just the whole experience. Afterwards, of course, also your wreath is nicely fragrant. Excuse me. If you've gotten a fresh cut Christmas tree, some of the greens that you might have access to would be if you're cutting up the bottom limbs of your Christmas tree to make room for all of those presents or to make it easier to get under there and water. So if you cut up your tree limbs, you may have bigger pieces that you want to cut into smaller sections. And if you watched last week's class on making arrangements with fresh cut greens, I kind of showed how to dissect a larger branch, but I'm going to show you again here in just a minute. What we are doing, the steps that we're taking to get this project done, is we're going to start with somewhere around 5 to 7 pounds of fresh cut greens, and the fresher the better. This could be noble fir, which you see here. We have pieces of noble fir. I have standard gorgeous juniper with lovely juniper berries. We have some western red cedar. You may also see incense cedar, but western red with these pretty little pine cones. I have a little bit of hemlock that we have harvested from our yard around here, and also a kind of flashy green. This is a Arizona cypress, so blue ice Arizona cypress, which gives us some of those pretty little kind of chartreuse pollen cones and a nice blue contrast against all of these deep greens. Beyond that, of course, other bling that you can add at the final last stage of your wreath could be pine cones, if you've got some that you've found in your garden or have picked from a hike in the woods. So we'll show you how to wire on pine cones. And then there's fun things like, just small holiday ornaments, shiny balls or decorative ornaments, and a ribbon as well. So with that kind of materials list in mind, I've got a lot of my I've made a head start on a lot of this project so that I can try to create the wreath without too much downtime on camera here. So what we really need to do is start creating bundles or almost little bouquets. And so a bundle of greens is then going to be wired onto the wreath frame itself. And when we wire it on, it's not going to be wired like in alignment with the wreath frame. We're going to wire it on slightly at an angle, extending with the tips out from the wreath itself. Not straight up and down or anything, but at a slight angle. So we'll kind of demonstrate that as well. So I've gone ahead and made a few pre-assembled bundles. The bundle size can differ. If you're making a larger wreath, you're going to have longer bundles. But for a 12-inch wreath, on average, I find 6 to 8, 7 inch long bundle is about right. And really what I do is I use the length from my thumb to my pinky as kind of the best gauge. So you can see that there's a range. It's not perfect, and I've got a little bit of dangly on some, so that's okay. And about, what did I say, maybe 7 or 8 bundles is probably what we're going to need to cover this wreath and really make a nice full looking project in the end. So it all begins, you can start by just laying out bundles. As I mentioned, we take a base such as the noble fir, which is kind of the main, that'll be the primary green that we use in the base. It's just got a nice strong structure. And in order to take a larger branch such as this, which is way bigger than my thumb to pinky, we're going to cut this into smaller pieces to make it easier to assemble into a bundle. And so something like this, you can see sometimes even looking at it from the back helps you to see the structure itself. But we're just going to cut off from the main stem here. We have little radial pieces that come off. And so we're going to cut those off of the main stem. See here? And they make nice, natural looking pieces. Then skip that top for a second and cut back down the sides. And the bottom too. As always, it helps to have a very sharp and highly functional pair of pruners. As you know, I love my Felco pruners. Going on 25 years plus in age this year, although I have replaced the blade several times. I will show you as we get closer up camera shots that there's a groove in the inside of my blade that is a wire cutting groove. And so because we're working with a lot of wire in this project, I don't want to just casually cut on the blade of my pruners with the wire. That's possibly going to gouge or cause some dents in my blade. So I'll bring it all the way to the inside, and behind my finger you notice that there is a notch at the very, very far inside of the pruners. And so a wire gets brought all the way in to where that notch is, and the notch portion is where you cut with instead of out here on the blade, and that avoids damaging your blade in any way. Typically, you know, their clipper blades are only so sharp or only so hard because they want to still be able to take up a new edge if you can hand sharpen them. So they're soft enough that sometimes some of these heavier gauges of wire, like I said, can really cause a kink or a snag, and that can just be so annoying going into the pruning season that we have next. So now that I've disassembled, oh, here was the top. So we can look at the top piece that I said let's wait and avoid. We can kind of take one of the previous pieces that we have cut just to measure. I'm going to lay it over here, and now I can take a little bit off of that top piece. So it's a similar length, and now we have all of these to make bundles into. So I'm going to quickly assemble 2 more bundles because I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that goes like so. Bigger piece, slightly smaller piece. I think I started with a base of 3 or 4 of the fur. Okay, so there's 3. We'll add a 4th piece just to fill it out. I want longer. Okay, so that's just the beginning there of a bundle. And now I'm going to add a little extra bulk like juniper and cedar just to create depth and interest. Oop, gotta watch where those stems are all going. So now there's a bundle as well. So similar still in size to my hand and length, I guess we would say. And let me just finish this last one. So because this is a little bit of a messy project, it's fun to do out in the garage or in an area where, again, you can do some easy cleanup afterwards. It's going to be a lot of debris on the ground, and so that does make it a great activity to stay, you know, outside and safe and gather with friends and family at this time of year. So let me get these bundles backed up a little bit so you can see what I am doing with the ring. So back to the ring and our paddle wire. We need to secure the wire to the ring. From here, we will be using, as I mentioned, a continuous piece of wire to wrap all of the bundles around the ring. So we will only cut the wire at the final phase when we have finished covering the entire ring with our bundles. So I'm going to unwrap, I don't know, 18 inches or so just to give me something to work with. And then, let me get these needles out of the way. And then I'm just going to secure it to the ring itself. And out of ease, because I have these little crossbars every so often, I'm going to use the crossbar so that my wire doesn't go slipping around the entire wreath itself. So I'm just going to attach it. It doesn't matter how you attach it. So I'm just going to wrap it around several times until it feels secure. You can go, yep, you can wrap it like so. You can feed the paddle through. It's on the cross wire, so it's not going to pull around. And then I just twist and try to make sure it's not, I'm not leaving like a sharp, pokey end somewhere, so I'm just kind of folding it in. I don't like to get pricked by the wire. There, now we have a wire attached frame and we can begin putting our bundles on. Now, I don't know I use both hands for different projects, and so I'm not really sure whether you'll hold your wire bundle, your paddle in your left hand, or whether you'll hold it in your right hand. But just, experiment with either one to see probably where you have the most strength, because we are going to want to keep some tension on this wire. So it looks like I need to wrap it one more time around there. I pulled it out. So here we go, using the place where we have attached the paddle wire as kind of ground zero. We'll take a bundle. Make sure that all the stems, you want all the stems of the bundles to be together so that as you wrap it on the wreath frame, you get all the stems together. So bundle together onto the frame, not in line, but slightly angled. So we're going to have the stems kind of sticking into the inside. And now we're going to wrap it around and secure it to the wreath ring. You could do 3 or 4. I think that might be 4. I wasn't really counting as I talk. So there we go. There's bundle number 1. Attached to the ring. You can kind of see the angle. And we're going to now place bundle number 2 on top at about the halfway point, covering bundle number 1. Here, see, I've got to reorganize bundle number 2 here for a minute. We've come unbundled. It's the curvy juniper. It's causing trouble. Get all those stems together as I mentioned. Geez, I made a mess of this one. Okay. Stems together. Now, bundle number 2, halfway covering bundle number 1. Hold it together. Bring your paddle wire. Just bring it over on the ring. Some people walk it down the ring. It's not that important. You're going to wrap it nicely. 1, 2, 3. I think that's 4. Okay, that's 2 bundles. Now, on to, and some of these are, I've built some different materials into the bundles. So some have, more or less than others. It's okay. You could do alternating patterns if you want. We can tuck things into the wreath as we finish as well to kind of, just add more decor to it. So here we go with bundle number 3, halfway covering bundle number 2, and at that slight angle outward. A few of these bundles, just to keep them together, I pre-wired the bundles themselves as a unit. So that is where I used the straight wires that I was showing earlier, just to wrap them up and make them easier for me to grab during the video and add without having them all fall apart like the other one did. So that is another way either to, help someone who may not have the dexterity to do all the cutting and things, just to make this go faster or easier for some folks. Bundle number, 1, 2, 3, is this 4? Halfway covering 3. And again, making the kind of random pattern that I've got going. I can trim as well. So if I have some of my bundles or branches that ended up longer or more than others, I can kind of trim off excess in the end as well. So this guy needs a little bit of bulking up. Get all the ends together. 5. Now, imagine making these over and over and over again, as people who do this for the holiday work do. Their hands, as you can see, your hands get pretty worn out. This is hard, it's hard work. It's sticky and dirty, and I mean, it smells great, but again, some of us are doing it just as a fun thing to do with friends and family for one decoration. But if you're making wreaths for friends and family and lots of people, you're gonna work for a while. It's gonna be a little bit of a tiring process. So be ready for that. What is a 6? 6. I might need more than my 8, but that's why we come prepared with extra greens. So 6 going on. It'd be really neat if I thought that somebody out there was making a wreath along with me, but it's probably not super likely wherever you are. If you do end up making a wreath, though, as I always encourage photos in the comment section, I would love to see what you create. 6, here's 7. Actually, I need to make a new, here's a good bundle. I just didn't want so much juniper berry repeated in this one section. So this one has some juniper, but not quite as much. There goes 7. Oops, grab my wire. You have to kind of be coordinated. I didn't say this is easy. It's just fun and rewarding when you end up with something so pretty in the end that you made yourself. 7. Now we'll go with this nice big fluffy juniper. So 8. Bundle number 9. Looks like I lied. We'll need more than my 8. It's okay. I'm prepared. 9's got this nice long piece of cedar, but actually all the stems weren't together, so now it's not quite as swoopy. 9. I'm going to go with 10 or 11 bundles, it looks like. So here goes 9. And see again how we're just using that continuous piece of wire. Everything's held sort of together. All right, I'm going to make a super bundle for 10. There we go. Measure by hand. 1. I have all these other cuts. 3. 3, maybe 1 more, then a little juniper, toss that in there, kind of tuck it in. Well, that's pretty, and we'll go with another nice piece of cedar that fills out the back and gives it some softness. Hopefully we'll like that in the end. Those little cones, the brown cones, if you look up closely at them, they look like little brown rosebuds or something. They're very pretty. So here, this actually, I'm gonna not, this is the second to last bundle. This is not the last bundle. So you can see as we get closer and closer to the end, where the first bundle has been attached. So here's the first bundle, and you can see that there's plenty of wire underneath it where I can probably attach this one and one more to really make my wreath not look like it's got, a gap in there. So Here goes second to last. Okay, and you can kind of see how close we are to the top of that first bundle right now. Right, okay, and then, oh gosh, I need another bundle. Thought I was done. 1, 2, 3. See, honestly, you can make these pretty quickly. 4, boom. That's a nice batch. A bit of juniper. Oh, that's a lot of juniper. That's okay. I like it. Cedar. I want a nice piece with all of those cones. There's a nice piece of cedar. So you don't have to obsess about your bundles. Quickly we can just pull them together as I obsess over my bundle. Don't obsess over your bundles. Okay, last one. All the stems are together. And this is this isn't necessarily the hard part, but this is one little finesse part. So kind of close up here. We take the top of the first bundle and we're just going to lift it up and move it away so that we can get that final one tucked in, covering about half of the last one and having that first bundle cover the final stem framework. So you got to kind of hold it out of the way. That's where it would be nice to have like 3 hands, maybe even 4 for a minute. I wouldn't want to have to deal with all those hands that later. I'm washing enough hands regularly as it is. I don't need twice the washing. 3, so here we go, 4. And to finish it off, nice and tight, I'm going to wrap around my first bundle one more time, just for good measure. But not to the point where you're going to see my wires. Okay, and then we can adjust as we go. So now I'm going to turn the whole thing over, and we can see the back. We can see how it's been attached to the original frame that we were working with. And I've kind of miraculously gotten myself right back to where I started because, again, you just went around the circle, starting with 1. What did I say, ending at, we did 9 or 10, I lost track. 11. Thanks, Becky. So now we're going to unroll another foot, 14 inches or so of paddle wire. Cut it by going all the way in and using that wire cutting groove and taking the end piece and just, essentially you're knotting or sort of, sewing it through the other wires and the frame just to tighten it up and make a final loop. And if possible, include like a hanging loop that will then be what you can hang it to the door or fence or garage or whatever with as well. So you're just kind of tucking the wires in and around the wreath frame. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So we're not, there's no special wreath knot or anything like that. Just several times through and around. Oh, and we are going to introduce our newest member of the Dennis 7D's employee team. This is Ginkgo. Ginkgo and his brother Spruce can be found on patrol doing PR mostly during the day, and then they are security in our warehouse at night. So here we get, again, I've got plenty of wire, so if you end up with more wire than you need, you can just cut it. But I want to make a hanging loop, which will just be more convenient than, trying to wire up another loop. So I'm just creating a ring of excess wire before I twist it off for the final, where'd it go? Before I twist it off for the final bit. So here we go, twist around. And here, if you needed to, a pair of like needle nose pliers will help to just grab that wire and bend it around, but just be careful that you don't actually, snap it. So now I have created a wire loop as well, just so to, again, out of convenience, we now have a loop that we can hang our wreath from. But sometimes you want to make sure that where you've put your hanging loop is technically the top, if your wreath has kind of a different way of laying. And, if I look at this, it's got a little bit of a bare spot on the bottom, and maybe a little bit of a bare spot here on top. I might be able to kind of finesse. We can certainly add in, so you can tuck in bits of cut greens, even wire extra greens in if you needed to. But honestly, you can tuck them pretty good into just the framework of what you have wired in, just to help fill it out. Or if I needed to as well, I could trim off anything that seemed excess or longer than it should be hanging on the wreath itself. But down here at the bottom and in some of the holes, what I think I'll do is use some decorations, which are going to help me to both fill in empty spaces on the wreath, as well as just to give me a little bit of extra color. So my hanging loop up top, there's the kind of general orientation. I have this pretty bow that our amazing staff can just do almost anything. And so some of our talented folks can tie these bows. I cannot tie bows like this, but that might be something that I have to learn one of these days. But right now I do rely on the expertise of my coworkers to make some of these really great additions that I just benefit from. So it's got a wire in it. We can shape it up. We can kind of, flatten or create a curl on the tail. And it's got a wire into the back as well. So we can simply wire our bow in. And like I said, I'm kind of bare towards the bottom. So you're just feeding the wires through the greenery just to the point where you can secure it. And of course, if you've got an outdoor wreath, make sure that you've got outdoor wire. If you've got a wreath that's going to be indoors, you've got a little bit more flexibility on the type of, on the type of ribbon that you can use. But this one's going to be on the porch covered, so we'll call it outside inside, which means that the ribbon I'm using is sort of, but would be better indoors, but it's going to be okay outside. I did be easier to attach this if it were hanging and not sitting on the table. So again, apologies for that. Could get it a little bit higher. And then adding little ornaments, which also come on wire. So we can just, and normally I would twist these in, but let's just shove them in right now for sake of class video efficiency. We can do maybe that's pretty. I'm going to put another one up here. Another. Right in here, kind of coordinate with our bow. What do we do? Need one more? Yep. Go just like that. And then It's coming together. Then if we wanted to add a pine cone or two, I said I would show you how to do that. So this is the last step. All of the, final bling and addition is usually last step. So we take a regular pine cone and that either you cut a piece of your paddle wire. This is about 1 foot long. I have these long already, just pieces of floral wire. Usually a pine cone has some scales towards the bottom of the cone that are open enough that you can thread the wire up sort of inside the scales. But be delicate. Pine cones, of course, you can break the little scales off. So and sometimes pine cones are really mean and will rip your skin and, so wear gloves. You should probably wear gloves for this whole project, but if your hands get all sappy and sticky and everything, hand sanitizer. It's full of alcohol. It easily just washes away the cares of the day and all of the sap that might be on your hands. So here, see, I've just woven that wire through the bottom scales. Now you can't see the wire on the pine cone, but I've collected it into the back, done a twist or 3, and now we can take this pine cone and the wires and attach it. Oops. Orient. I guess there's an up and a down on the pine cone, and so I don't want to put it upside down on my wreath. Now that I've made kind of a top and a bottom, I'm going to just push that in, get those wires to come through the other side. And this requires sometimes like flipping the wreath over backwards and forwards to feed the wires through. Ultimately, you want them to go, through and around the frame itself so that everything is secured together. I'm having trouble getting this one wire to come back through. But again, you get the general idea. So I'm not going to go through the effort that we can. Once it's wired, you can change the angle of it as well. So I don't have it fully secure there, but fluff your ribbon, fun with bling. We could still at this point add more of our blue material if we wanted. So again, just emphasizing or creating a repetitious color pattern throughout the wreath. We could put in berries instead of bling even. And so holly berries or assorted berries, the thing is that they're fresh and so they don't last forever. Berries inside will dry up and fall off pretty quickly. Outside, they hold on better, but they're still going to slowly kind of decay. So berries I like to tuck in on their own or wire in on their own so that you can easily pull them out and switch them up. So berries, of course, the red of the holly doesn't necessarily go with the other color that I've chosen today. So that's just an example of adding berries or different seed pods or bling, different live or holiday materials to the wreath as well. There you have a mixed holiday wreath in 42 minutes and instructions posted in the comment section for you as well. This is the same type of all of these steps you would use to build a wreath out of spring greens or boxwood if you wanted to just do a single wreath of the same material, all boxwood, all juniper, all Arizona blue cypress. And yes, so there is, you can mist it itself outside in just the humid conditions that we have in the Pacific Northwest. They stay pretty nice and moist. And there are preservative sprays available that help to seal in the moisture on the greens. We offer to spray like your Christmas tree or even your greens here on site, but you need to then wait for them to dry. So you can also just take the spray home and do it yourself. The products are called Moisture Lock or Wilt Proof or Cloud Cover. And all three of those are like the kind of antiperspirant for plants. It works both on living plants to reduce windburn, sun scald, frost damage, so not a bad thing to have this time of year as well. And they are used to preserve fresh cut greens to just kind of seal in the moisture that they have and reduce needle droppage or premature drying out or desiccation. With that being said, there are battery operated strands of lights these days that are LED. So if you wanted to add lights to your wreath, wrapping some festive, LED lights around them, the first pack of battery operated lights that I ever got that I was so excited to put on my holiday wreath, they used like 4 D cell batteries. And it was a huge battery pack that had to somehow be concealed behind your wreath on the front door. I was so excited to just have a lit wreath on my front door. I lit it for turned it on for the beginning of guests arriving for a holiday party that year. And by the time the last guest had arrived, so in a span of maybe 30, 40 minutes, the lights had already dimmed and I had gone through all 4 of those D-cell batteries. So the improvement that we have seen in lighting efficiency, battery operated, and LED, which are also cool burning, less likely to dry out the greens as well, really just kind of ups everybody's game on what you can do with your holiday wreath and where you can put it that's not dependent on plugs or anything like that. Do, of course, never use a live flame or lit flame around the wreath for any means, not for candle rings or anything like that. We do have a few holiday candle rings that we do sell, and the greens themselves have been fire retardant or treated with material to stop them from catching fire. So always be safe, which will help us be together for many, many years to come. So with that being said, as always, thank you for watching and happy gardening.